North Korea threatens the United States with a preemptive nuclear strike, while a U.S. expert says Pyongyang could successfully field an intermediate-range ballistic missile next year. South Korea's political parties grapple over claims made in a former minister's memoir, which says Seoul consulted with Pyongyang before voting to abstain from a UN resolution. And Iraqi forces head toward the city of Mosul to fight off Islamic State and regain control of the country's second city. These and more coming right up.
Hello, it's Tuesday, October 18th here in Seoul. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Hwang Ji-hye. North Korea has lashed out with more aggressive rhetoric against the United States, this time vowing to attack the U.S. with nuclear weapons first if it continues to feel threatened. The regime also claims it's capable of conducting at least 3 more nuclear tests. Connie Kim starts us off.
A North Korean foreign ministry official has warned of additional nuclear tests and a preemptive strike on the U.S. if American nuclear forces mobilize against it. In an exclusive interview with NBC News on Sunday, Lee Yong-pil, the director of the North Korean Foreign Ministry's Institute for American Studies, made clear that the North will not step back from its nuclear ambitions as long as there's a nuclear threat from the U.S. He said Washington has nuclear weapons off of North Korea's coast, targeting the capital of Pyongyang and the North Korean leader. Lee stressed that a preemptive nuclear strike is not something the U.S. has a monopoly on, and warned that North Korea will strike first if it sees a threat from Washington and because the North has a technology. The official also warned that Pyongyang could carry out a 6th, 7th, or 8th nuclear test. These comments follow remarks made last week by U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Pacific Affairs Daniel Russell, who warned that Kim would, quote, immediately die if he decided to carry out a nuclear attack. In a sign the remarks may have hit a nerve, Pyongyang fired off a medium-range Musudan missile on Saturday, though the launch was not deemed a success. With tensions rising in the region, the defense chiefs from South Korea and the U.S. will meet for the annual security consultative meeting in Washington this week. The allies will reportedly focus on Washington's extended deterrence over South Korea, under which the U.S. has vowed to mobilize all of its military assets, both nuclear and conventional, to defend Seoul in a crisis. It'll be a packed week in Washington as South Korea's foreign and defense ministers will hold a 2+2 meeting with their U.S. counterparts to discuss additional ways to pressure North Korea. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
And despite Pyongyang's failure to launch an intermediate-range ballistic missile, a U.S. expert says that North Korea's aggressive testing schedule could see it enter operational service next year. Writing for the U.S.-based North Korea monitoring website 38 North, John Schilling said the regime's failed Musudan missile launch last weekend is noteworthy, as it could be a sign the North is testing to see if they have really mastered something new. He said the move shows that in spite of only 1 successful launch among 7 attempts this year, North Korea is not simply repeating old failures, but tweaking variables every time. All but the most recent one were launched near its city of Wonsan on the southeast coast, while Saturday's took place from its west coast. Japan is coming under fire for refusing to pay its annual contribution to UNESCO. Tokyo is said to be concerned that documents related to Japan's wartime sex slavery are set to be included on UNESCO's memory of the World Register. The move has even incensed media outlets in Japan. Kwon So-ah has the details.
The Japanese government would lose its discipline if it's trying to attain its claim through the power of money. That was from an editorial in Japan's Asahi Shimbun newspaper, which sheds light on Tokyo's apparent refusal to make its contribution to the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. According to the Daily, Japan hasn't paid a fund of 3.85 million yen, or roughly $37 million to the organization this year, a payment that is usually done in April or May. This is seen as an attempt to block records of Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of women, most of them Korean, to be included in the UNESCO's Memory of the World Register. An international joint committee of civic groups that includes Korea, China, the Netherlands, as well as Japan, submitted a list of over 2,700 cases of crimes to be registered on UNESCO's archives. The Asahi Shimbun stressed that the yearly payment is an obligation of member states and that this gives Japan a bigger say in reforming the system. The Japanese government has been stating its consideration to not fulfill its financial duty ever since the Nanjing massacre in China has been listed on the UNESCO's Memory of the World Register in October last year, despite Tokyo's opposition. The Memory of the World Register was established in 1992 to preserve important historical documents. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
South Korea's political parties are locking horns over claims made in the memoir of an ex-foreign minister. The ruling Saenuri Party is fixated on one excerpt from 2007 in which it's claimed Moon Jae-in, a potential presidential nominee for main opposition party, asked North Korea's opinion before a UN vote. The main opposition party says the move is an attempt to cover various corruption allegations swirling around the ruling party. Park Ji-won has the details.
Former Foreign Minister Song Min-soon's account of a decision made during the Roh Moo-hyun administration has set off a firestorm in domestic politics. The account from his memoir released last week details South Korea's decision to abstain from 2007 vote on a UN resolution on North Korea's human rights record. According to Song, Moon Jae-in, who was the chief of staff to the late president at the time, proposed that South Korea ask for North Korea's opinion on the matter before voting. In the end, Seoul abstained from voting. Since the release of the memoir, the ruling Saenuri Party has lobbed harsh criticism at Moon and the opposition.
If it's true, it constitutes an abandonment of sovereignty and a breach of the law. We need to get to the bottom of this using every possible means, including a parliamentary investigation, hearing, and a special prosecutor.
Moon, who is the former chairman of the main opposition Minju Party of Korea and a presidential hopeful in 2017, and his party went on the attack.
They are once again politicizing inter-Korean issues to cover up various corruption allegations.
With the country in crisis, the Saenuri Party seems to have lost its senses. They're willing to defame our party's presidential candidate to cover up the Choi Soon-sil scandal.
In regards to the question whether Moon first favored voting to later change his position to abstention, Moon told reporters he doesn't remember details of the actual process as he was too busy directing overall inter-Korean relations back then. The minor opposition People's Party also had a strong reaction to the unfolding controversy.
Has the Saenuri Party ever formed a task force on the corruption allegations surrounding people like Choi Soon-sil? The ruling party continues to make absurd remarks without doing what's necessary.
Two officials who participated in the 2007 meeting, former Unification Minister Lee Jae-jung and former NIS Director Kim Man-bok, have refuted Song's account. The former intelligence chief said Song should be indicted for leaking classified information. In response, Song repudiated them both, saying the truth never changes. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Iraqi government forces are roughly 24 hours into their U.S.-backed offensive to drive out the so-called Islamic State from the northern city of Mosul. Iraq's Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi made a televised statement Monday announcing the start of the mission. The ISIS-linked Amaq news agency said its fighters had launched 10 suicide attacks on advancing forces near Mosul and that Peshmerga forces had encircled 5 villages but failed to take them. According to journalists and NGOs in the area, thousands of people are trapped inside the city as ISIS militants had threatened to shoot any civilians trying to escape. The commander of the coalition, U.S. Lieutenant General Stephen Townsend, said the operation would likely continue for weeks or possibly longer. If Mosul is retaken, Raqqa in Syria will be Islamic State's last remaining stronghold. Winning a Nobel Prize is perceived by many as the ultimate scientific recognition and highlights the importance of investing in basic science. And that could be a reason why Korean scientists have been constantly overlooked by the Nobel Prize Committee, as our Hwang Ho-jun reports.
Over the years, Korea has achieved some remarkable feats in science. Many pre-modern inventions, including the first movable metal type and the world's oldest astronomical observatory and more, show that Koreans have long pursued scientific excellence. Today, Korea is a strong leader in applied science, especially in IT, and is recognized as the most connected nation in the world. However, when Nobel Prize season came around this year, Korea was yet again a spectator. The nation has yet to produce a Nobel laureate. According to some experts, many Nobel Prize winners have come from countries that give a great deal of attention to research in basic science. So, what is basic science? It's the study of science for its own sake, ranging from physics and chemistry to biology and earth science. Experts are saying such fundamental studies are crucial in preparing for the so-called Fourth Industrial Revolution. They say it's like building a house. The stronger the foundation, the safer and higher it can be built.
Basic science is important because it drives the development of the foundational know-how in the R&D of the next generation.
Unfortunately, there's been a dearth of affection for fundamental science. In fact, according to the OECD's main science and technology indicators, Korea is the leader in terms of R&D spending as a proportion of GDP. However, Korea's investment in basic science research has been very limited. This year, with a nearly $17 billion budget for R&D, less than 6% has been allocated to basic science research. Basic science researchers say the reason for investing in the field should transcend the nation's desire for a Nobel win.
If we want to become a frontrunner rather than a speedy follower, it's important to become a leader in the field of basic science as well. That's how you become competitive.
It's not enough to merely get on the bandwagon during the Nobel Prize season. Experts say a more holistic perspective and consistent interest in basic science are necessary for Korea to take the lead in the global scientific advancement. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
Seoul's best-known Hanok Village is presenting a special exhibition this month. The graceful beauty of Korea's traditional houses are harmoniously fused with modern art at Namsangol Hanok Village. Kim Hae-sung takes us there.
Namsangol Hanok Village, a cluster of traditional Korean houses built during the Joseon Dynasty, is one of the most visited tourist sites in Seoul. Here, tiled roofs stretch elegantly toward the sky and pillars create simple lines, offering a glimpse of how aristocrats and peasants once lived. Inside, the wooden maru floors keep the Hanok naturally cool in the summer, and there's a space between the floor and the ground for the underground heating system known as ondol, which keeps the single-story houses warm in the winter. It's the perfect weather for an outing, and this month, the village is taking advantage of the season to offer visitors a special art exhibition.
We have placed 5 modern works of art in the Hanok to magnify the beauty of the Hanok and provide visitors with a more diverse experience.
In the courtyard, visitors are greeted by a 5-meter-tall white lotus statue that symbolizes creation and unity in an increasingly interconnected world. You can also find works of art in and outside the Hanok, like this one called Bring the Space. These blue feathers symbolize mystical power that transcends time and space, tradition, and modernity. As you take a closer look at the feathers, you can also see the structure of the pillars and hanji paper windows through which trees, flowers, and the mountain are visible, a truly panoramic view.
I compared these houses with Austrian houses, the buildings, the roofs, and with wood. So these houses are I'm very interested here in.
At the Yoon family house, fish swim under the crystal blue sky in another artwork hung from the rafters. The vibrant display adds a splash of color to the traditional house, attracting a crowd of children who look on in wonder. The exhibition at Namsangol Hanok Village is open to the public and continues through October 31st. 김혜성, Arirang News.
And that wraps it up for now. Thanks for staying with us. I'm Hung Jie, and I'll be back in less than 2 hours for more news updates. So do stay tuned, and goodbye for now.